academics, director of University of Vlore, dear professors, dear researchers, and participants. I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the 5th Southeastern European Conference on Sustainable Development of Energy, Water, and Environment Systems. Welcome to Vlore and University of Vlore, which is a co-organizer of this conference. It's the first time that this conference takes part in Albania, and especially in Vlore, which is a beautiful city on the coast side of Albania. I would like to welcome all of you and thank you for the participation. And now we'll go through the schedule. So I'd like to invite here and give the floor to the head of the Academy of Sciences of Albania, Professor Zinushi, for a welcome speech.
Bonjour. Très honorés participants, chers professeurs, chercheurs et scientifiques de différents pays, chers représentants des institutions de sciences et de l'enseignement. C'est un très grand plaisir pour moi de saluer cette conférence au nom de l'Académie des sciences qui se déroule à la ville magnifique de Vlore. Je voudrais remercier très chaleureusement l'organisateur pour cette initiative et surtout pour ce choix. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue, un très bon séjour à la ville de Vlore, parce que je me donne ce privilège, parce que la Vlore est d'ailleurs une ville malade. Donc, je suis plus de Vlore que de reste du C'est d'abord un honneur pour la communauté scientifique internet de doter une conférence de revue internationale et mieux en Albanie un message positif pour la ville de devenir un centre de débat scientifique pour 3 jours de suite. Vlore est très fier de son histoire et très connu dans le tourisme maritime et touristique. Mais pour être un centre touristique compétitif, on doit résoudre selon les standards et les technologies modernes les problèmes de l'énergie, de l'eau, de l'environnement et du traitement des déchets. Donc, les questions qui vont être traitées dans cette conférence sont très liées avec la perspective de ces soldats dans le monde. C'est bien sûr de l'Albanie tout entier. Cette conférence renforcera l'idée que les meilleurs investissements les plus effectifs sont les investissements pour la science et l'innovation. Et les investissements basés sur des études de recherche récentes scientifiques, même en tourisme. Peut-être de telles rencontres sont une bonne occasion de traiter ensemble de tels problèmes si cruciaux. Donc, la solution constitue une des défis de l'humanité, surtout en ce moment. En tant que l'Académie des sciences, c'est notre devoir de stimuler la coopération et les liens entre les institutions scientifiques et de l'enseignement supérieur entre les chercheurs et scientifiques dans tous les domaines, et surtout leur coopération et échange d'idées et d'expériences. Pour cela, nous avons entrepris un effort qui facilite l'accomplissement de notre mission. Et dans cette phase, les bons exemples sont très bien accueillis. L'organisation de 2 conférences internationales de haut niveau en Albanie, avec la participation de centaines de scientifiques et des dizaines de pays, durant une période de 9 mois, comme la conférence de nanotechnologie au mois d'octobre. Et celle-ci sont un très bon signe pour nous. Ça, c'est un message pour la société, la politique, pour investir plus à la science. Notre réforme chez nous se déroule en même temps que la réforme en justice. Même cette dernière est inspirée par le modèle phare. C'est ce qu'on dit. La différence de l'efficacité des investissements en justice et en sciences sont très évidentes. Le succès en justice est estimé par le nombre d'individus envoyés en prison, tandis que en sciences, c'est estimé par le nombre d'individus envoyés en espace. On mentionne particulièrement ce bridge et le centre SEE pour l'organisation de cette conférence. Permettez-moi de vous souhaiter un très grand succès. À nous revoir en Albanie en tant que hôte de l'Académie des sciences la prochaine fois. Merci.
Thank you, Professor Dimushi, the head of the Academy of Sciences, for his welcome address. Now, I would like to give the floor to another academician, Professor Alec, member of the Macedonian Academy of Sciences and Arts.
Good morning, first of all, dear participants, guests, and friends. I am, first of all, happy and honored to welcome you to the opening and awarding ceremony of the South European SDEWES Conference Series 2022 on behalf of MANU, Macedonian Academy of Science and Arts. It is great to once again be here in person. Our institution has stood by SDEWES conferences since its very beginning. In Dubrovnik first, then in 2012 with the SDEWES conference in Ohrid. Later, the first Southeast European SDEWES conference series were held in Ohrid 2014. Then the same thing being with other cities and parts of the country from Southeast. Then there was a conference in Piran, Slovenia, Novi Sad, Vojvodina, an online conference in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are also, until the end of the year, additional 2 conferences in São Paulo, outside of Europe, in South America, and the city of Paphos in Cyprus. It is of crucial importance for our region to host today's conference, especially for Albania, for higher education and research institutions, Academy of Sciences, universities, and other institutions in the country and region. Fortunately, today's conference is with the best results in terms of participation. There are over 197 or let's say 200 registered participants, out of which 135 participants are on site in Vlore, and the remaining contributing online. But I believe that in future, Albanian higher education institutions and researchers will continue their successful cooperation with the SEWES SEE conference as well as on different European joint projects. This will further contribute on increasing awareness and strengthening the commitment of this region toward achieving the sustainable development goals. Dear participants, having already set high standards of the Southeast European SDEWES Conference series, organization of today's conference imposes great responsibilities and challenges, and I believe that participants in this conference will create an environment for intensive scientific dialogue and exchanges. Once again, welcome and best wishes for success. Being today in Albania, I just am going to short address in Albanian language too, so that can be practiced later on using 2 or 3 languages with translation. Të nderuar të pranishëm, ju përshëndes të gjithëve, jeni prezent, dhe ju dëshirojmë nëse ardhni. Kjo konferencë tani më e validuar ndërkohë të rrisim vetdijen drejt zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm. Dëshiroj edhe një sukses në konferencën e 5 të serive të Evropës Jubilindore të tu në Faleminderit.
Thanking the academic Professor Dr. Alec, member of the Macedonian Academy of Sciences and Arts, for the welcome address. I would like now to play here the recorded speech of Professor Dr. Ivan Hoxha, which is Director of the University of Tirana, as the organizer of this SEE SDEWES conference. So now is exactly the time of playing his welcome speech. The recorded speech, I would like to invite here for the welcome address Professor Dr. Roland Sissi, the Rector of the University of Vlore, organizer of the conference.
Nderuar profesor Miran Duic, nderuar akademik Stender Gjimushi, kryetari i Akademisë së Shkencave të Shqipërisë, profesor, studiues dhe ekspert në emër të studentëve dhe pedagogëve të Universitetit të Vlorës, ju falenderoj për ftesën dhe për formatin e organizimit të kësaj konference në Universitetin e Kemalit të Vlorës, të konferencës së 5 të Evropës Jubilindore mbi zhvillimin e qëndrueshëm të energjisë, ujit dhe sistemeve mjedisore, e cila është konferencë jashtëzakonisht e rëndësishme, që zhvillohet për herë të parë në Vlorë, por edhe në Shqipëri. Kjo konferencë vjen si një pas rrethëse e një vargu konferencash 2 vjeçare për zhvillimin e qëndrueshëm të sistemeve të ujit dhe mjedisit të energjisë, e iniciuara për të ofruar një vend për studiuesit në rajonin e Evropës Jubilindore, por edhe për studiuesit dhe specialistët në mbar botën, dhe ata që janë të interesuar për të paraqitur rezultatet e veprimit shkencor dhe për të diskutuar mbi gjendjen, drejtimin dhe prioritetet e ardhshme në fusha të ndryshme të zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm dhe integrimit rajonal. Sigurisht, qëndrueshmëria duke qenë gjithashtu një fushë e përsosur për vlerësimin ndërdisiplinar dhe ndër multiculturor, sistemi komplex, jenë hapësirë për diskutim në të koherent të rëndësishme, që është një vend i përshtatshëm për mbledhjen e shkencëtarëve dhe kërkuesve nga e gjithë bota për të takuar, për të krijuar, diskutuar, ndarë dhe shpërndarë ide të reja. Sigurisht që aspektet e zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm të energjisë, mjedisit dhe ujrave, aspekti i zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm energetik, apo aspektet e zhvillimit të qëndrueshëm të mjedisor, kanë të bëjnë me jo vetëm me zhvillimin urban dhe me konsumin e të qëndrueshëm, por dhe me mungesën e stimuleve ekonomik për ruajtjen, zhvillimin dhe përdorimin e burimeve natyrore, ndotja historike e trashëguar, lëvizja e pakenduar e popullsisë, praktikat jo të efektshme të menaxhimit në fushën e shkarkimeve në mjedis dhe mungesa e sistemit të fortë për kontrollin e tyre janë disa nga faktorët kryesorë që kanë rënduar gjendjen e mjedisit edhe për të fiksuar treguesit mjedisor në këtë vend. Si përgjigje dhe reagim për mbrojtjen e elementeve të përbërës të mjedisit, produktuar edhe pasojat e rënda në mjedis në zhvillimin ekonomik i standardizuar i paraviteve në të vjetë, gjatë periudhës së tranzicionit në Shqipëri, dhe mendja politike ndaj mjedisit dhe mbrojtjes së tij ka qenë një nga detyrat e rëndësishme dhe që është marrë në konsiderat gjithmonë. Në këto vite janë treguar kujdes më shumë në krijimin dhe forcimin e strukturave të mbrojtjes të mjedisit në nivel qendror dhe vendor, në krijimin e një kuadri politik të përshtatshëm, në artimin e politikave të qëndrueshme dhe në aderimin në një varg të marrëveshjes edhe bashkëpunimesh në programet të kombëtare për mbrojtjen e mjedisit. Një shoqëri mjedisore e qëndrueshme duhet të mbrojë kapitalin natyror të rinjovueshëm dhe ullë interesin dhe ta përdorë me zgjuarësi kapitalin e parinjovueshëm të burimeve natyrore. Është tashmë një koncept i pranuar që mjedisi kontribuon në përmirësimin e mirëqenies së shoqërisë dhe rritjen ekonomike përmes tri funksioneve bazë të tij, sigurimit të vendeve të para, funksionimit si vend depozitimi për mbledhje dhe çdo lloji dhe përsigurimin dhe përdorimin të drejtë të tij për një shoqëri. Shpreh bindjen këtë konferencë dhe kontributet tuaja dhe kontributet e bashkëta ku t'i japin një rezultim të ri të fundeve edhe arritjeve të secili në të fushë. Ju falenderoj dhe ju uroj punime të mbara të kësaj konference.
Okay, now I would like to proceed further with the welcome speech of Mr. Tonino Piccola, which is a member of the European Parliament. We have appointed for this conference.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Brussels. It's with great pleasure that I address you today at the beginning of the 5th Southeast Conference of Sustainable Development, Energy, Water and Environment Systems. I wish I could have joined you in person in Albania. Unfortunately, my parliamentary obligations this week have kept me in the north. Having said that, I'm very happy that you managed to meet fully in person after 2 years of pandemic. Southeast Europe and Western Balkan region are an essential piece of our climate-neutral ambition puzzle. Actually, if you were to ask me which of the new European policies will influence your field of interest and work, my answer would be, well, all of them. Challenges that the European Union and the world face due to climate change are grave, comprehensive and far-reaching. And it has forced us to rethink our common goals as well as our overall strategy. The process has already started with the European Green Deal, aiming to transform our economy into modern, healthy, sustainable and competitive one. It's a document of far-reaching and deep-cutting changes. One of the key pieces of legislation envisioned by the Green Deal, the European Climate Law, was passed by the European Parliament and Council last June. As of last year, July, a climate-neutral EU by 2050 is the European Union's official long-term goal. A goal we cannot achieve without more funding and more cooperation with you and your colleagues. Many changes have already been outlined. The Commission presented the Fit for 55 package, a package of alignment of EU's sectorial legislation with the newly agreed targets. And other pieces of legislation, such as a farm-to-fork strategy, a circular economy action plan, a methane strategy, have already been adopted. These changes will not, however, affect every community the same way. The future of the European Union is very green. However, we must secure it's just as well. The Just Transition Mechanism is thus of paramount importance as a key tool to ensure the transition towards climate-neutral economy happens in a just way. As you know, the GMT will provide support for help mobilize at least 65–75 billion euros over the budgetary period in the most affected regions to elevate the socio-economic impact of the transition. The Just Transition Fund, worth 17 billion euro, is the main pillar of the Just Transition Mechanism, and it's really a social policy element of the European Green Deal. As in your event you focus on Southeast Europe, I wish to mention my role as a rapporteur for the third generation of the Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance, IPA3. In the previous report, we called for improved consistency, efficiency, visibility and transparency of Union financing in the field of external action, thereby advancing the Union's values and for alignment of the IPA3 funding with the objective of European Green Deal. We insisted and managed on placing sustainable development and climate action as a core objective of it. It goes without saying Russian aggression in Ukraine changed many things. It is making us all even more aware of vulnerabilities of our security and our economies. It also shows our overdependence on energy imports and supply chains in general. The solidarity wave across the EU and globally, and the EU joint response and commitments, and the commitments of the Member States are unprecedented. We stand united in the most challenging times, and this crisis has prevented once again. Our response was also proof of choosing political decisions ahead of economic ones, after many years of policies based mainly on economic factors and interests. By adopting the sanctions, we also put forward security and self-sufficiency over efficiency, with rising prices and inflation that might stay a more permanent feature in the economy. The sanctions cost Russia, but cost the European Union too, especially given the energy overdependence, and often prevented us on the EU level from having a more direct stance on Russia. To counter it, we need to boost our production, secure supply chains, and support greater industrial and energy independence. We should also establish a solidarity mechanisms at the EU level to address the economic and social consequences of the current crisis. All of the processes that we started with the Green Deal must be accelerated with more funding. I believe that all of the green transition process that we started have to be upgraded and not halted. They must be accelerated with more funding. There is no doubt that in these challenging times we need all to closely cooperate and combine innovative technology, smart policies and habit changes if we are to bring about much needed change in a truly sustainable way. But we need to closely cooperate between the countries too, regardless if they are a member of the EU yet or not. However, we also need a more institutionalized support and clear enlargement perspective for the countries in the region that are not EU members yet. As you come from both categories, your cooperation is extremely important and can provide great assistance in reaching this goal. I would like to conclude by saying that it's my firm belief how development in the future could be defined as development only if it is sustainable. On that note, I'm thanking you for your attention, congratulating you on your valuable work over the years, and wish you best of luck in assisting the countries of Southeast Europe becoming more developed and more sustainable. I hope you have a great stay in Vlora, and I wish you many fruitful and stimulating discussions. Thank you very much for your attention and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Pikula, for the welcome address. I would like now to welcome the address of Professor Alec, Director of the University of Tirana, after solving the technical issue.
Dear participants, allow me first of all to thank you to be part of the 5th International Conference 2022, organized by the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture and Instituto Superiore Técnico Lisbon, Portugal, in close cooperation with the University of Tirana and the University of Vlore. I would like to congratulate for taking the initiative to organize this conference on the sustainable development of energy, water, and environmental systems, with Albania hosting it for the first time, dedicated to the upgrade and dissemination of knowledges on the methods, politics, and technologies that aim at the sustainable development. Sustainable development meets the present-day needs and in no way harm the opportunities of future generations to meet theirs. The sustainable development should be closely linked to the improvement of the 3 fundamental pillars: economy, ecology, and society. Its permanent objective should be designing and supporting projects that bring together economics, social, and environmental aspects of human activities without destroying the planet or depleting our resources. It is through highlighting that Albania is an excellent starting point for the Green Agreement, having an energy sector completely relying upon hydropower plants, not using the fossil fuels that contribute to pollution and global warming. Albania is a leader in the region with regards to the number of built and planned hydropower plants. From the energy perspective, Albania aims at further increasing its production and transmission capacities by planning to build new hydropower plants, improving and expanding the transmission network. Albania is also a transit country for TAP and aims at establishing the necessary infrastructure for gas extraction and use. The solid connection with the environment, essential to well-being, is especially significant for countries under development, which is different from developed countries. Rely mainly on renewable resources and their environment's renewal capacities. This leads to the need of achieving sustainable development and resolve environmental issues which are mainly related to the impact of the human activity on environmental resources. However, environmental resources are rather specific and special. Therefore, the best way to address and settle them would be define and implement common strategies and action plans. In the end, I would like to conclude by thanking you once more and wish you successful proceedings during the conference. Thank you and enjoy the beautiful city of Vlora.
Thanking the rector of the University of Tirana, Professor Dr. Alec, for his welcome address. Now I would like to give the floor to ex-deputy of the Albanian Parliament, ex-deputy Minister of Environment and Professor of the University of Tirana, Professor Destipara.
Dear Professor Dulic, Director of the University of Vlore. It's an honor and privilege to welcome you to this Congress. I would like to thank especially Professor Dulic and Professor Datu for selecting Vlore as the location of this activity of regional republic. The value of this meeting can be seen from the large turnout and wide range of covered topics. These topics are also in resonance with the sensitive issues for the city of Vlore, such as water resources, energy, and sustainable development. In Albania, but not only, the environment and sustainable development are often subjects of rhetorical inflation. While, unfortunately, on the other hand, very little is actually done to address environmental issues and stop the degradation of natural resources. Nowadays, the environment still remains the most abused area, being a great concern not only in Albania but globally. Our global reality shows a disturbing, critical situation, and I'm afraid some processes are already irreversible. During my career, I have had the chance to work in several universities in Albania and abroad. And at the same time, be a part of politics as a member of the Albanian Parliament. I have noticed that regardless of the country, the faced problems are somewhat similar. On the one hand, we have politicians who mention without limits their concern for the environment, the future of our planet, but they do very few to protect the environment. On the other hand, we have scientists, such as yourself, who understand the essence of the problem, study, estimate, even predict what will happen tomorrow, but unfortunately remain very little heard outside of scientific journals or congresses like this one. Today's early environmental degradation has not stopped. On the contrary, based on some indicators, it's getting worse. This means that the scientific factor with us as a protagonist are integral to the political class in terms of impact on changing the situation. The screening reality requires the class to have a different role beyond academic space. My political experience has shown me that no politicians or government likes opposition. That is why civil society, in particular scientists, must take upon themselves this role and be a stronger and more determined opposition. To become as a partner and play an important role in the development of policies at the local and global level. This is not possible, avoiding political activities. On the contrary, it is important to become part of political forums where decisions are made. The politicians of the day love our deafness. They are comfortable when we sit inside an academic space and do not raise our voice. I have faith in the strength of our capacities, hoping that change and try to put on track the development of the world also from the point of view of environmental and sustainable development. Since for many of you it's the first time in Vlore, I wish you to enjoy the wonderful nature of Vlore, the high quality of food, the hospitality of people, and why not to get some knowledge about the glorious history of this city, with the hope that you will return to Vlore again. I wish you success and thank you.
So I would like to thank Professor Destipare for nice welcome address. Now it will be my presentation. So before starting it, I would like to welcome you once again for being part of this conference, which is organized for the first time in Vlore, and all of them which follow us from remote. Welcome to all. Well, I would like to thank all the organizers of this conference, which I'd like to mention is the University of Zagreb, Instituto Superior Técnico Lisbon, Portugal, the University of Tirana, and the University of Vlore. And for sure, the executive organizer, which is the International Center for Sustainable Development of Energy, Water, and Environmental Systems. A special thank also to our basic sponsors, a list of which you can see shown in the screen. Well, before mentioning some statistics, I would like to go through some conference series of Southeast European Sustainable Development of Energy, Water, and Environment Systems. I would like to mention the first one, which was organized in August 2014, the first SDEWES SEE conference, which was held, as I mentioned, in North Macedonia. Then the second one, which was held in Tirana, Slovenia, in 2018. Then we come with the third conference, which was organized in Serbia, Novi Sad, 2018, and 2020 we have Sarajevo's fourth SDEWES SEE, which was organized in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the fifth one is exactly this one which you are attending, and is fifth SEE SDEWES conference in Vlore. This is the list of the participating countries represented by their flags. And we have here, as you see, a map of the represented countries. So there are about 202 participants coming from 35 countries. Regarding the statistics, I would like to show, as you see, this bold dark line, which shows the number of received abstracts. The number of these abstracts lays exactly in between two different series of conferences. We have those organized in 2014 and 18, and above what we got up to now, there were the conferences SEE 2016 and 2020. So we have a reasonable good number of abstracts obtained up to now, and from these abstracts, which in total, as I mentioned, are 293, we have 205 accepted, which makes 70% of those. We have 18 of them rejected, about 6%, and the other, which I cancelled, about 70 abstracts, making up to 24, almost 24%. Then further statistics, I would like to show that regarding the number of attended participants, the conference SDEWES SEE Vlore has 35, so it means there are 35 countries represented, which is the mean of the participating countries almost of all the conferences organized in Southeast Europe. And if we follow the upper parts of the plot, you'll see that we have the registered participants and attended participants, which reached actually a peak in this conference, and its number for sure is higher than the previous SEE conferences. I would like to show further statistics based on the number of abstracts submitted, where again the number is a mean of the values obtained from all SEE SDEWES conferences. And regarding the archival paper, their number is higher compared to those of the first, second, and third SDEWES SEE conferences. Meanwhile, the number of the conference paper increased in this conference with 106 conference papers. Now it's the time of partner journals. Many of you would like to ask where to publish our accepted papers, which actually are archival papers. You'll have the chance to publish in the following journals, which can be also found on the webpage of SDEWES SEE. This is, for example, I'll mention some of them: renewable and sustainable energy use, applied energy, energy conversion and management, journal of cleaner production, energy, renewable energy, and so on. But I want to stress also that one of the journals which is quite preferable to publish is the Journal of Sustainable Development of Energy, Water, and Environment Systems, which is exactly JSDEWES, and is a conference journal, which is ranked as Q2 in Scopus and has a SGR for 2021 of 0.46. The editor-in-chief of this journal is Professor Twitch, president of SDEWES Center, and this journal is indexed, as you see, in several indexing centers like Scopus, Inspect, Google Scholar, Creation Web Archive, and so on. And it has an age index of 17. Now, I would like to show some beautiness of the city of Vlore to give you some information. Vlore is situated in the south-western part of Albania, so they is on the western coast, and it has a number of inhabitants of 131,000, so it's the third biggest city of Albania. Some of the pictures of Vlore are already shown here. And I would like now to show some special aspects of what you can visit in Vlore during your stay here. It's the old town of Vlore, which is about 2.4 kilometers from here. So always I take the location of the hotel for measuring the distance to these places, which I'll show. This old town has been recently renovated and is beautiful to visit. Then after this, we have different beautiful beaches around Vlore. These are located southern of Vlore. So we have the Termi beach, which is about 55 kilometers from Vlore. We have Jipe beach, which is 63 kilometers from Vlore, and Lamani beach, about 74 kilometers from Vlore. Very nice beaches and quite frequented from different tourists visiting Albania, whose number reached up to 7 million in 2019. Which means about more than 200% of the, let's say, country's population. Now let's go to a further aspect, which is a beautiful island, which is exactly in the lagoon of Narta, quite close to Vlore, 11 kilometers from here. It's the island of Svrnec. This is a beautiful natural park and also has a very interesting and old Byzantine monastery, which dates from the 13th century. So you are welcome for sure to visit this one. And for people which would like to visit archaeological sites, there are several of them in Albania, but quite close to Vlore you can find the archaeological site of Apollonia, which was actually an Illyrian city occupied by, or let's say funded as a Greek colony at the time, and you can observe it from its ruins. And we have also, except Apollonia, Butrin archaeological sites, which is the biggest one, very south of Albania, exactly near the border to Greece. So if you will have time for them, you will enjoy observing and visiting these archaeological sites. I would like to go further, showing the Alec Pasha's castle, which is about 78 kilometers apart from Vlore, situated in a very nice location, which is Porto Palermo Bay. And this castle, or this fortress, was a present of Alec Pasha for his wife, Vasiliki. And it's a beautiful one because it has a special geometrical form. Then I would like to go further, mentioning that Vlore has a great importance for Albania because in Vlore it was proclaimed the independence of Albania from Ottoman Empire in 1912, and the house of this event is exactly about 10 meters or 15 meters apart from our hotel. So it means the Vlore International Hotel. And you'll have a chance, for sure, if you like, to visit it. And these are some pictures. So, for example, you see below it one picture. This is not exactly the house where the independence was proclaimed in 1912. This is how it looks now. This is a part of the inner of the house. And this is a monument dedicated exactly to the Albania's independence in 1912. I'd like to go further, not too far from Vlore. You can observe a very nice mountain peak, which is also a nature park, and it's a Logara touristic village, where you can see nice restaurants, nice holidays, villas, and for sure a very good climate, which combines the climate of a mountain with coast climate. And furthermore, I want to show some of southern infrastructure of Albania, which is, as you see, it's a curvy road which goes to the south of Albania, and this one is quite recently renovated, and you can visit the beautiness of the south and following this road. I would like to mention also for people who would like to have some adventure and adrenaline, they can have, for example, paragliding in Vlore, exactly from the peak of the mountain, which is in Logara. They can just book paragliding and have paragliding trip over the beautiful coast of the south. For people which would like to visit shipwrecks and underwater parks, we have several of them in Vlore, which are made of old ships, but also newly sunk ships, in order to make beautiful parks for all of them which are interested in this kind of sport. Moreover, I would like to mention the military museum, which is not too far from Vlore. It's just 21 kilometers. It's called place Oriku. And there you can find a museum part now, and before has been used during the former communist times. The Albania's Pride, which is a submarine 105. We had at the time about 4 submarines used for military purposes. Now, just one of them remained in this museum part, and it's still to visit. And after this, I want to conclude my presentation, wishing you all a successful conference, and for sure a very pleasant stay in Vlore. Thank you. Now I would like to invite for presentation Professor Dr. Shir Kalkash, which is from International Scientific Committee of the
Our climate future is in our hands. In this opening introductory notes of the Southeast European Conference on SEDEWES, I would like to focus on system transformations and integrated approaches for the mitigation of climate change. The differences between a 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius warmed world is dramatic. The frequency and intensity of the climate impacts multiply, while the transient climate response to cumulative CO2 emissions is fairly linear, the impacts grow exponentially and threatening the life support systems of our planets. And when we look at the European and Mediterranean region, where we mostly come from here, we are already experiencing and will experience multiple climatic impact drivers. And there are limits to adaptation. and in securing a more secure climate future, how we mitigate will determine this future. Coming to the mitigation of climate change, so how we can change this. In this report, we looked into the recent trends and developments, system transformations with global warming, and linkages between mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable development. And perhaps the most important, how do we strengthen the response? How do we change where we're currently leading? So due mostly to fragmented approaches and also insufficient mitigation action, net anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase globally, and an increasing share of emissions is attributed to urban areas. So in 2015, it was about 62% of the global share, and in 2020, this share increased to about 72%, excluding those from aviation, shipping, and biogenic source emissions. So what we do in urban areas will also shape our climate future. And when we look at the past century, we have seen the highest increase in average decadal emissions on record. And the average greenhouse gas emissions were about 9.1 gigaton equivalent per year higher than the previous decade. So is this the climate future we want? How do we secure a more different climate future? So without strengthening the response for climate mitigation, we are currently leading toward a median global warming of 3.2 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. And here we see that there's both an implementation gap between the trend for implemented policies and targets and nationally determined contributions, as well as an emissions gap, where we see this one for the 1.5 degrees Celsius with no overshoot. And what we need for the reductions by 2030 is 43% to be on the blue trend. So unless there are immediate, deep, and sustained greenhouse gas emission reductions across all sectors and regions, the 1.5 degrees Celsius target is beyond reach, but is this the future we want? So we aspire for sustainable development, and achieving sustainable development requires nothing less than ambitious climate action, and climate action is crucial for sustainable development everywhere. As signs of progress, at least 18 countries sustained production-based greenhouse gas emissions and consumption-based CO2 emission reductions for longer than 10 years through energy supply decarbonization, renewables, energy efficiency gains, and energy demand reductions. And actions can be taken now to shift development pathways towards sustainability and accelerate mitigation and transition across the systems. So how can we shift unsustainable energy, land, and resources? In the Working Group 3 AR6 scenario database, over 3,000 scenarios were involved, and went through a process of categorizing these through a vetting process and the different temperature outcomes, and also using these results to define illustrative mitigation pathways. Among the 8 categories, C1 is a category that defines the 1.5 degree with or without overshoot, and there are 3 illustrative mitigation pathways in this category. And the illustrative mitigation pathways, they show combinations of various mitigation strategies that are consistent with a given global warming level. Here in the C1 category, we see the illustrative mitigation pathways, 3 of them. 1, renewable energy, rapid deployment and technology development of renewables, electrification, low demand of energy and materials, and both on the supply and demand sides, the pathway called shifting pathways that requires major transformations to shift development towards sustainability. And system transformations requires actions, coordinated actions across energy, land use, innovation, lifestyle, and policy, and renewable energy combined with the low demand has a defining role in how we can shift our development pathways. And this theme is a running theme across reports, shifting development pathways to increase sustainability and broaden mitigation options. And also resolving the carbon lock-in, with also resolving ways of phasing out fossil fuels so we do not lead to the other unsustainable options. There has been also sustained decreases in the unit cost of solar energy, 85%, wind energy, 55%, and lithium-ion batteries, and large increases in their deployment. Here we see how much the adoption of solar energy onshore wind, offshore wind, concentrated solar power, as well as batteries for passenger electric vehicles have come, and they will continue also in the future, because this is the energy transition that's so important. And mitigation options, notably solar, wind, electrification of urban systems, demand-side management, they're increasingly cost-effective. And half of the reductions that are necessary for 2030, these are at a very reasonable cost, if not also benefits, because the costs are lower than the reference or the system that they replace. And clearly, the economic benefits of limiting warming to 2 degrees Celsius will exceed the cost of mitigation. And for 100% renewable systems, a variety of specific solutions to accommodate large shares of renewables in the energy system have emerged. And electricity systems in some countries like Albania and regions are already predominantly powered by renewables. And for the entire renewable energy system, greater physical, institutional, and operational integration is so important. And towards 100% renewables, integrating the systems, coupling sectors, will lead us towards a more secure climate future. Urban areas can also create opportunities to support this and increase resource efficiency, decarbonize the transition of infrastructure urban form towards net zero emissions. And as if we see urban areas as a key aspect of the solution, if we only consider moderate and low mitigation efforts, this will lead to 34 and 40 gigatons CO2 equivalent, which we do not want. But if there is ambitious and immediate mitigation efforts, including high levels of electrification and improved energy and material efficiency, global consumption-based urban CO2 and CH4 emissions can be reduced to at most 3 gigatons CO2 equivalent in 2050. And speaking to all cities across the world, whether they're established, rapidly growing, or emerging cities, the categories or the broad strategies will encompass better urban planning for reducing and changing energy and material use, electrification in combination with switching to renewable energy sources, and enhancing part uptake and storage in the urban environment. And here we see the results across all the regions, where there is more resource efficient and compact urbanization across the regions. And for the first time in IPCC reports, urban areas have been analyzed as an urban system that brings together energy, buildings, transport, land use, environment. And what is done in urban areas can resolve some of the carbon lock-in and avoid those in the future, and provide beneficial cascading effects across the sectors. As another component of urban systems, these urban areas are also connected and also have implications for land use and agricultural areas. Across all of the urban technologies, there's also entry points for integrated strategy, electrification, mobility, heating and cooling, spatial planning, social behavioral aspects, urban green and blue infrastructure that we try to provide as a roadmap in the IPCC report. And also looking at the demand side mitigation that encompasses changes in infrastructure use, end use technology adoption, sociocultural and behavioral change. And in addition to load management of electricity systems, demand side measures for human settlements, land transport buildings, they can, together with all of the demand side measures, encompass about 40 to 70% of the reductions that are necessary until 2050. And here we see, again, coming from the summary for policymakers for land transport buildings, better urban planning can involve important energy savings. And here we also see some of the examples. Shared mobility, compact cities, spatial planning, electric vehicles, renewables. And there are also synergies between sustainable development, energy efficiency, renewable energy urban planning, and also demand side mitigation. When we look at the mitigation options here for urban systems, urban land use and spatial planning, electrification of the urban energy system, district heating and cooling networks, urban green and blue infrastructure, waste prevention, minimization, and management. There are predominant synergies that can be captured. And also looking at the last row, we here see the integrating sectors, strategies, and innovations. This is the option that has the most synergies with the sustainable development goals among all the options that are analyzed. And this includes, for example, increasing co-benefits for the urban inhabitants, cleaner air, better job opportunities. And the next few years are critical, and there are also ways to improve our chances of success, with an important part being the integration of sectors, strategies, and innovations. When we look at feasibility, this includes multiple dimensions from geophysical, environmental, ecological to institutional. And if we identify what stands in the way, we can find the barriers and use enablers to overcome these barriers. And the feasibility of some options can also increase when they are combined or integrated, such as bringing together compact urban form, electrification of urban energy systems, and urban grid and infrastructure. And these cross-sectoral challenges, they are there, but possible to be overcome. And when this is done, it is rewarding for reducing land use changes, pressures on agricultural lands, preserving carbon sinks, reducing demands on geophysical resources, and opportunities for increasing penetration of renewable energy and demand-side flexibility. So coming to this central message, walkable areas without a need for vehicle transport, greater renewable energy penetration based on more flexible energy demand and resource efficiency with lower environmental impact across supply chains, these are possible. And advancing these possibilities also depends on the presentations that all of you will be presenting in the 5th Southeast European Cities Conference. So in shaping our planet's future, one thing is clear. The evidence is clear. The time for integrated, coherent, and synergistic action is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Oelker, for the nice and informative introductory note. Now it's a special moment to invite the president of the SDEWES Center, Professor Alec.
When I first time came to Albania 20 years ago, even the border guards thought that why should I actually come to visit Albania? And then I have fallen in love with Albanian beaches, food, and people, and I'm coming back since then more or less every single year. We had 2 project meetings in Saranda in 2005, and then I had the opportunity to discover the beautiful coast of south of Albania. And then when Tledi and Arya, 2 Albanian researchers that were for long participants of SDEWES conferences, came to me in Dubrovnik and said, well, what do you think about organizing a conference in Albania? I said, yes. And here we are now, and I hope it will be a joyful discovery of a new country for all of you. Because I'm sure that all of you thought a little bit, you know, we are going to unknown territory. But you will see very kind people, very good food, and really excellent climate and beaches. We are here in the times when difficult things are happening around us. Energy is in a huge change process. Can we accelerate the transition? In 2021, EU was importing more than 40% of its gas from Russia, 27% of it oil, and 46% of coal. Also, 20% of its uranium fuel is coming from Russia, plus 90% from Kazakhstan, which actually goes to Russia because Russia produces fuel rods. So we are very dependent on a country which we have not any more good relations with. Energy systems are basically in a status of war. Can we think of a solution just in case the next winter there is no Russian fuels coming to Europe? The dependence on Russian oil is very significant. We can see that on the left are total amounts. Those are big amounts. Germany is depending quite a lot. On the right side, we see percentages, and we see that some countries are nearly completely dependent on Russian oil. But oil is actually easier to replace because mostly comes by ships, like coal. We already banned Russian coal from European markets. The worst problem is gas, because gas is more complicated. You cannot build new pipelines quickly. It takes time, and we are still bringing only a small part of gas with ships, with LNG ships. So some countries are extremely vulnerable because they don't have storage, enough storage. Their storage is empty, and they depend very much on Russian pipeline gas. So this red area in the center will be difficult this winter. But we have solutions up to a point, up from 150 billion cubic meters of gas. We can probably replace 1/3 by new LNG shipments. Around 10 billion we can replace with additional pipeline shipments. There is a very important pipeline going through Albania. It ends in Fear and then goes to Italy. And on the other side, it's coming from Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, Greece. And this can be doubled probably in a couple of years, but we are not sure that it can be significantly increased already for this winter. But we can also increase it from supplies from Northern Africa. But you can see it's a relatively small amount. So we can also substitute gas, some quantities of gas with some dirty fuels like coal. We can buy more coal. We will hopefully not be doing it for a long time, but now it's prices. We have to respond to the prices. We can also replace some gas with oil. Maybe we could improve the nuclear power plants to continue working. We can substitute a part of it with renewables, building more quickly renewables, but we cannot do so much in just 1 year. Renewables take time to develop and to build. We can do something with reduction. We should reduce the temperature of heating in our houses to 18. Well, in the West, it's okay because they are heating houses to 19, 20 degrees, but in Southeast Europe, I think that many of engineers will be thrown out of their houses because the families will not accept anything less than 25. So we have to start persuading our families that for this winter we will have to somehow survive. In the longer, what the EU thinks in its Repower plan is that we can substitute around 2/3 of Russian gas by this winter time. More LNG, non-Russian pipe gas, renewables, energy savings, and some other measures. In the longer term, by 25, EU can completely substitute Russian gas. With Fit for 55, we see it's only a small part of that process. We will need to bring more gas, which is not coming from Russia. So we have to change temporarily strategy of stopping any new infrastructures. We will have to do some adjustments, but I think that everybody will understand that this is a critical situation and that we have to save our way of life. Fortunately, in the longer term, renewables are now so cheap. These are the prices in US from 2020. Gas is now 5 times more expensive. So just the only cheap energy is from wind and solar. That means that we will be building a lot of wind and solar, but wind and solar are variable, so we have to solve the problems. It's always, we are always stronger if we are together. And if we look at energy systems as something what is built on a continental level, then we can do it much more efficiently. If we are doing it on a national level, it will be much more expensive. On a continental level, together, it's cheaper. We will need more grids. We will need to temporarily flexibilize thermal power plants so they can balance these renewables. We will need to couple wholesale markets. And what is even more important, we will have to use demand response to integrate power, heating, cooling, transport, water systems together in something what we call power to X. We will also need dedicated electricity storage, but that one is the last resort because it's the most expensive. So we know that wind is a variable. So sometimes it's blowing, sometimes it's not blowing. On a national level, it can be from 0 to 1, but on the European level, it never goes to 0. We can see last 4 years, it was never 0. So this is quite important. It means, well, if we build enough more wind, we covered our needs. So the new approach is following. 20th century energy systems were the systems in which supply was following demand. You turn on the light, somebody increases the production of electricity somewhere. In 21st century, we have to turn that backwards. Since the supply is something that is generated by weather, we will have to have a demand that follows this supply. So how to do it? Of course, we said we can cover it by renewables, but there are some issues that cannot be electrified. We don't know yet for the trucks. We might electrify the roads, or we might use hydrogen or some hydrogen-based fuels for trucks. For shipping and aviation, they cannot be electrified. High-temperature processes sometimes cannot be electrified. We have to have backup for winter windless weeks, which never happen, but we still have to have backup. And it all makes around 20% of energy demand. So if biomass can cover sustainably half of that, for the other half, we will need hydrogen or hydrogen-based fuels. Let's look how we see it happening in a very simplified way. The red line is the electricity demand which we have today. If we build 3 times more wind and solar, then we actually cover it, most, not all. There will still be some holes. How shall we cover these holes? With hydro. Countries that have hydro, like Albania, Norway, Croatia, or most of Southeast Europe, can easily integrate wind and solar because hydro is flexible. Other countries will have more problem and it will be more expensive, but we will probably use the markets in order to use European hydro resources for the best for everyone. Because sometimes if you sell your balancing services to somebody else, you get more money than you spend hydro subsidizing coal, as in some countries. Okay, so what happens with the excess of wind and solar? We will have huge amount of excess of electricity, and we have to somehow economically use it in order to make this cheap. One thing to do is to electrify transport. It's already happening. Last year, 20% of European market was electric cars, 10% on the global level. Electric cars are in the S-curve. They're exponentially growing. There are problems, there will be problems, but this is a revolution that cannot be stopped anymore. They are 4 times more efficient than internal combustion engines, and also they can help us integrate wind and solar better. Then we can electrify heat pumps. This is something what Albania is already using. We will be using them much more on a European level instead of gas boilers. And we still stay with half of excess of electricity. What to do with it? We will convert it into hydrogen or hydrogen-based fuels. and then we will use it in industry for backup and for heavy transport. And we have brought you a leading professor in hydrogen technologies, and he will have Professor Diccher, he will have speak tomorrow. So just one important thing when we think about hydrogen, hydrogen is now everywhere. Everything is in hydrogen. Do we want to have hydrogen in heating? Well, if we use wind and solar to produce electricity and use it directly in heat pumps, compared to using it through hydrogen pathway, we will need 6 to 7 times less electricity, 6 to 7 times less wind turbines and solar. So I don't think there will be heating on hydrogen. Hydrogen will be used for very valuable processes, industry, feedstock, high temperature processing, backup, and fuels. The methane is even worse. We want to heat us directly with electricity. I would like to thank you very much for coming here, and I hope that we will have excellent scientific discussions during these 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kuic, for this interesting and informative talk. I would like now to invite Associate Professor Tomislav Kupchets for the rules of participation in this series.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be able to welcome you in front of the local organizing committee of the 5th SDEWES Southeast Europe Conference in Vlore. Since Professor Kledi already told you a lot of practical info on Vlore and surroundings, I would just give you a few basic pointers on some conference rules that we try to follow within our conference series. So first of all, I would kindly ask you to always wear your name tag, just for us to know who you are and other people know who you are, in order for you to be able to do some kind of discussion more easily. But also behind your accreditations, you have this another piece of paper, which are your lunch coupons, which are very important because it will allow you to enter our lunch area in the hotel. So basically, you have a lunch coupon for each day that you using for lunch. And the other thing is that this is your social visit ticket or a coupon, and you will need it tomorrow for our social trip. Social trip will be very interesting, I think. The weather forecast is very good. So I would kindly ask you to take some sunscreen and to wear layer clothing from a swimsuit to some kind of jacket, because in the evening when we sail back to Vlore, it might be a little bit chilly. So all the info regarding the social visit tomorrow, all the detailed info will be on our registration desk as always, but you have it in your schedule. You have the practical info on the web page with all the detailed information and itineraries. So if you want to have more info on that, of course, you can always ask us at the registration desk if you have any additional questions regarding the social trip. A second thing that is quite important to stress out is SDEWES policy on publishing and maybe more importantly on cancellation. So we have actually quite a strict rule regarding a presentation of your work. And one of the key issues is that you actually present your papers or your research. Unfortunately, if your paper is not presented within the conference, it will be cancelled. So please have that in mind all the time. Online participants, we have the same rule for online participants as well. It's very important to participate in the discussion that is happening around your paper. All the questions that are asked need to be answered by you. Regarding the sessions itself, maybe for people that are first time on one of our conferences, regarding the presentations, on each of the session, around 15 minutes before the start of the session, some of our local organizing team members will be in the room. They will read you, they will take your presentation, they will copy it if you want to test it, if everything is fine, everything is working. So don't worry, just be in the room around 15 minutes before the start. For people that might be chairing or co-chairing the session, and if they didn't do it before, basically the same rule applies. Just be there around 15-10 minutes before the start of the session, and you will get all the information from one of our technical people that would be assigned for that group. That's it. No, it's not. I would just kindly ask you, after we finish here with the award ceremony, we will have a group photo in front of the university on the steps on the main entrance. So when we finish here, I would just kindly ask you to go outside in front of the university. We will be very quick. We will do it in 2 or 3 minutes, and then you're free to go for a coffee break. And then after the coffee break, we continue with our invited lecture. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tomislav, for the rules of participation.